What's up? What's up?
Yeah.
What's up?
Other
Where's
people.
the paper?
Paper. Oh,
What
you go,
the
Neila.
paper?
Opal, Atabal, and
And
Vega.
Vegas. Listen now.
Welcome
Sure.
back. Welcome back to
Mm-hmm.
the Tallawah Table.
Mm-hmm.
So these past 2 weeks have been fun with all these the comments. People have been commenting and giving us feedback. Some very strong feedback and some very positive feedback as well. So what we're calling this, Neila, this section where we kind of respond to some Tallawah, what you say?
Or
Yes.
Tallawah, what you say?
Tallawah, what you say?
What you say? Mm-hmm.
Tallawah, what you say?
Yeah.
All right. So let's look at a few of those and let's see, and we can discuss. All right. So here we go. I'll because I'm kind of small, I'm gonna read them. So it was the first I've heard an intellectual perspective on Anansi culture, a positive spin of its influence on society. I, for one, see it as the source. Yeah, I should have fixed that for them. Source of many of our problems. But you guys got me thinking maybe it's not the Anansiism, but the deliberate breakdown of community and fracturing of culture, which subsequently led to misuse. What do you think?
Yeah. And my response to it would simply just be to, same as what I said before, that, is what does Anansi become now? Because the truth is that Anansi helped us to survive. And so
and it's still helping.
And it's still
Yeah.
helping us to survive.
Yeah.
It's just that we just don't know what that survival must look like,
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you know what though, and you see this thing about the deliberate breakdown of community and the fracturing of culture that has kept us in survival mode. We are not really as a nation in a thriving mode. There are some who are able to thrive through, I think, the misuse of a Nancy culture. But in terms of actually using it to drive everyone forward,
Yeah.
we're still in survival mode. So we're not all feeling safe enough to be able to know exactly when, because the container within which Anansi was meant to be used, I think, has been broken and fractured. And so we keep trying to maybe mimic other containers, and it's finding its way in crevices and being used in ways that allow others to thrive. Maybe when we come out of that survival mode, it will shift its shape to help us to be even more agile in mind and not think about being agile in corrupt ways. You know what I'm saying?
And truthfully, the thing not balance yet. So until the thing balance, everybody can't come out of survival mode, because some people not in survival mode because they don't have to be. And some people never had to be in survival mode.
Yeah.
And so, those who know what it means to survive or to have to survive, they're still there. And so they still feel that they have to, right or wrong, that they have to do what it takes to survive. Because nobody is being there,
Right.
As a nation, though, I still think we're in survival mode. Like if you could think of a national consciousness, I feel so.
Can survival thrive, or can survival exist or coexist with that creative splendor, which is who and what we are? And maybe, I guess, and maybe that's
because a lot of it comes out of it.
Yeah. Because you have to do the little chicken business sometime to survive, and that is that calls for a certain type of
creativity.
And I think also when one person is in survival mode and they're seeing other people who are not or who don't have to be, it sets up a different thing. I remember once, I might have told you this story before. I think it was something with Usain Bolt. He came to came back home from winning something, and they were doing something at the stadium for him or for the athletes. And I was playing in this orchestra with Peter them and singing. And so there was, as usual, it was chaos with the police not letting us in and things being late and that kind of stuff. And they eventually let us into the arena, and then we had to take a bus, a shuttle thing from the arena to the stadium. And some of us were complaining, but we need to get on stage, blah, blah, blah. And there's some little kids there who are being shuttled over as well. And I said, "What I'm doing, man? I don't know. Nobody not special in Jamaica. Nobody not special." And that stuck with me for years. It still stick with me. And that is, I think that's a part of it. When you see, when you have to survive, and you say other people don't have to survive, or don't have to do the things that you do, then you feel it feels unfair. It feels unbalanced, and you'll do whatever you need to do to get by. And that's why people won't stay in line, and that's why people, the taxis drive the way them drive, and so I don't know. Let's go to the next one. Let me squint up my eye and look upon this. So evil is evil, wrong is wrong. We know it when we see it. We know it when we feel it. It is colored for the benefit of the wrongdoer by the wrongdoer. What does that mean? 30 people in a line, and you have a friend, and you go to them and give them the story to get to the top. Seems innocuous, but that act is the embryo of corruption. Links, networks, the bly, who you know, the graying of the facts. We were just talking about the same thing. The exclusion of detail is the foundation of all corrupt acts. Right and wrong, indeed, is black and white. We don't like to wait or be denied. So we make our rules and bend the bar as we move along. But always we face the consequences. Think about the concept of an express service at a public entity that you are required to pay for. And Nancy would be so proud.
I think there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray that exists, though. I don't necessarily think that everything is just black and white.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray areas that we have to pay attention to, because historically, some people are already at the front of the line. But historically, if you're already at the front of the line, and then somebody who is in survival mode comes along and says, "Boy, them always at the front of the line," and then him do a little thing and him talk to a friend who accidentally get somewhere midline, and that friend can get him midline too, and so people do these accommodations, and some of it feels very wrong, especially if you're not the one being accommodated.
Right.
And some of it feels very nepotistic, if that's the word. And some of it feels like just wrong, and evil, as this person is saying. But some of it, again, the gray area, some of it is really just a rebalancing of the thing. And I'm very, very conscious about how we rebalance. But also, I think that we should rebalance deliberately and not in the underhanded way. Because then when you rebalance in an underhanded, objective way, then somebody else is going to be left out. Somebody else is going to be disenfranchised. And somebody else is going to be like, they need to skip the line.
So it's kind of like the difference between equality and equity.
Exactly.
We've seen that thing. Right.
Yeah. I think, in a lot of our responses to things, we need to be careful about absolutism. And we need to always see things in context. And I find sometimes we're so denigrating of each other in the terms to say we do this and we always do that and whatever, and that reflects for me what we were told about ourselves by those who are colonizing us, because there's no context. We haven't seen the context in terms of all of the various things that brought us in. In fact, if I look at this description actually sounds not to me like a Nancy culture. This sounds to me like colonizer culture.
Exactly.
And colonizer culture is very, 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 very good at sliding. Think about what happened with cricket. Changing the rules when you can't win, changing the bar, bending this, bending that, and all the time psychologically breaking you so you don't recognize that it actually is very detrimental to you, this kind of colonizer culture that you aspire to. So some of the same things that we use, these measures that we use to describe our own way of being out of survival and whatever else, could be describing colonizers, but also is coming from a colonizer perspective about us. So colonizers have projected on us, and we have taken that on, and we are describing each other and ourselves like that. And to do that in this absolutist kind of non-context way, for me, is not nuanced and sufficient enough for 2024. We know too much now to be going there. Exactly.
And I think we've kind of been brought up either in religion or even in our fiction, in our superhero culture that we all read, the comics and stuff, of this absolute good and evil, black and white. And it doesn't, that is that is not a reality. And more now this year for sure, up throughout the end of last year and this year for sure, we're realizing that there is some of the people who have been saying, "Oh, we are the good guys," are not, and they have never been. And there are these gradations and varieties, and then some of the people who they call evil or who they're painted as this and that, we're not.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful about this binary good and evil, black and white,
Yeah,
blah blah blah. It don't work.
Me not say some things not absolutely terrible
Wrong.
going on.
True.
Right.
True.
Me not say that. But that brush is not for everything.
Yes. All right, next, moving on. Okay. I appreciated this conversation, a fluid and organic flow of who we are as a culture by three friends pioneering souls and thinkers. Thank you. Some practical points and on reparations, technology, and more. Final notes would be on artists finding their roots and telling stories, not for our audience members, but for us. Rick Rubin said it best, and it's what separates the greatest from the rest. It's how we know China from the Middle East, from Europe, and it will likely be needed for Jamaica again. And the quote is, "When making creations, the audience comes last, not first." And I think Rick Rubin said, "I come first. When I'm creating, what I want is what comes first."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I am my first audience.
I'm my first audience. I am my first audience, and as an audience, I come with all that the other people who will eventually see it have as well. But I'm fine-tuned with a certain type of interrogation in my stuff, in a kind of research ethic, a kind of critical awareness of things, and I come with that, and I'm doing all of that as audience and as creator, and then I'm doing all of that, and then doing all of that to try to also entertain you after I have brought through something that I think is has been filtered through in a way that is palatable. I hope that makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. I don't think we can read all of this one. It's a long one. Let's read the first part. Very insightful conversation. Chase Fund, I believe, was established to function like an arts council, as Neila cited. Arts councils in the UK and Canada. However, I'm not sure it is now functioning as it should. I recall in the early years of its establishment, they used to engage arts practitioners, helping to review proposals, comment on them, etc. And the comments were used to assist in their selection of projects to award funding. Let's stop there with it. So we were talking about how how do we fund these things, we need a council because
separate from a Chase Fund. I mean, you think about Chase is culture, health, arts, sports, and entertainment. And all 5 letters don't get
entertainment or education.
Education, right. All 5 letters do not get equal significance in terms of the pot. They don't. And we know what gets most, right? And
we know what gets least. We know what
gets least between the arts and culture. If you look at, I think I had looked at their annual report or something a couple of years back. Arts and culture are fighting for the same 25%, as far as I remember. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong, peeps. But in the sense, the principle remains: we're not fighting for an equal stake. And the kinds of projects also that they fund are things that are product related. So you're going to get a book, or you're going to go and get a degree, or you're going to go and get a something. Arts councils fund process as well. So there is designated money for you to go and do professional development, not necessarily study, or you can go and research and develop your idea without ever presenting it. There's money for that. Money to offer workshops. So it doesn't preclude the need for it.
You're lazy as an artist. You're lazy. You want to, but
a big part of our work is not what you see. It's all the things that go into the percolating. So the Arts Council is supposed to. The fund can fund the projects. The Arts Council funds the people. And that's the difference, I think.
Okay.
And all of those things going to, it's related to what we were talking about earlier. All of those things going go into perfecting that audience of one who is the primary audience, who will eventually develop something that the audiences, the millions of people, will be able to partake of in a way that is not only palatable but satisfying. And even if it's not satisfying,
And
that
sometimes
will
not
bring
satisfying.
edification, that will bring interest,
Sometimes
enlightenment, empowerment, all of the things, and sometimes just
just shock,
enjoyment and
and
shock.
sometimes not
Mm,
enjoyment, sometimes
yeah.
truth and
Yeah.
unpalatability. And that's why you need an arts council as well, because it cannot
Mhm.
always be the thing that is palatable. Even if sometimes it cannot even be the thing that's entertaining.
Mm.
We have a
Exactly.
fixation with entertainment. There
Hmm.
are people being funded. I don't like to say abroad, but there are things around the world being funded that are durational performances with chickens.
Yeah. But
Money,
but ultimately it feels like we're all playmakers, and that is what we're expected to do. We're,
right?
this is one big resort, and all of us are just meant to be playmakers.
It's
Do what makes them
important, but it's
happy.
not everything.
Yep, yep, yep. All right. So you like how I'm moving this along. Let's go on the
Yeah.
tabletop. Hey, all
I
right.
love that song. Oh,
Thank you very much. So our topic today is telling our stories. Yes.
Mm.
So
On the tabletop.
on the
mhm,
tabletop.
that's what's right out there, spread out
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of things going on around. I don't want
mhm,
to deal with any specifics, but people are always questioning what is cultural appropriation and who deserves to tell this, and what
Mhm.
stories we tell and why we're not telling our own stories, and then sometimes when somebody else tells our story, we get upset, and then and then other people go, so tell it, do it. What you're waiting on? Do
Yeah,
it.
and then but the truth is that some people want to tell our stories, and it's just the resources that they don't have. So to be fair, some people just don't have the kind of resources to tell it in that bigger way. But a
Yeah.
part of the thing is that sometimes you need to tell it in a small way, and then you don't want to be telling it in a small way, and then somebody else come and scoop it up and tell your small story in a big way and exclude you from the story that you originally framed, because nobody owns the story, or
Right.
yeah, but you can frame a story within a particular context that is satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even if you're telling your story in a small way, though, I mean, I think there's certain things you can do to protect your intellectual property, if that's what it
Mhm.
is. So even when the time comes that somebody does notice what your small story or the small way you told your story, and go, oh, but this could be told in this way. Can I get permission, and can we come to an agreement, and you'll be paid this and blah blah blah, and you consult this
Boy,
way.
we're gone into intellectual property, and sometimes people don't ask your permission to tell the very story that you
yeah,
told in the same way, exact way that you told it with your frame. They don't ask permission, and so them just start tell your story, and you get no rights and you get no money, and
But
that's
have you
also.
protected it? That's what I'm saying. Have you protected your story when you're telling it in a small way? Have you looked into the future and go, it might never happen, it might happen, but this is what I'm creating. These are my rights. Have you found out,
how many
what your
people?
rights are around this thing that you've created, and say, okay, these are things I need to do to protect it. Maybe it might be expensive or it might not be,
It's not
or and I can I
many.
can I can register this. I can write this down. I can write down this idea and store it this way and file it here and register it here, so that when the time comes, yep, this 1996 that I did this. This is mine. So talk. No, let's get a lawyer. What? Show me
But
the money.
Mike, like that's the thing. There is so much education, public education, that needs to be done around creativity and storytelling and projecting yourself in a public space and a public way. I remember my colleague Simone Harris.
I
I
was
think it might have
just
been
thinking of
you were
Simone.
thinking about it. It
Thinking of
might have been
Simone, and dance is
yeah, dance
copyrightable.
is copyrightable,
Yeah,
right? Remember that? I think it might have
yeah.
been around 2009, maybe 2010, around that time. She was like, we need to do this. We need to, let people understand. She was offering people the opportunity, choreographers opportunity to get their work filmed and fixed, like, register particular things and whatever. Not that many people were interested. We carried it to Barbados. Some people were interested, but It's the follow through sometimes, because the follow through is not as vibesy as telling the story. The follow through doesn't have that vibes. You have to go and sit down in this particular place, do this registration. If you have a logo to go along with whatever it is, you have to go search
Mm-hmm.
yourself or pay for somebody to search for you to make sure that nobody else has that logo. It takes a lot, but even just the idea, because remember, the telling of stories is a way of almost like buoying up the self. It's a way of reaffirming your own self, just as a general principle,
Mm-hmm.
reaffirming the heritage and the identity of your community, of your family. Think about, your grandmother or your auntie or even yourself, who tell the same story over and over again. 'Cause it feel nice. It sound nice in your mouth to say it again, and this person never really hear how you did tell cuss after one day, so you have to tell them again. It's so much a part of who you are, that people don't necessarily even see it as a product
Mm.
to be thought of in a way where you have to protect it in a certain way. It's
Mhm.
us artists now who are part of the storytelling tradition, but who also are the ones who tell the stories on a larger stage, in a larger space. We are the ones who really owe it to those stories and to the people who the stories come from, to
Yeah.
learn about that part of it also.
And
Because
you
we
know,
do have,
sometimes, sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
because the generation comes so naturally to us. We're always generating these stories, and
Mhm.
when it comes to even like social media now, even more people are becoming story generators. So you don't even really think about, until somebody exploits it. You're not
Mhm.
really thinking about spending the time to protect it. You know what I mean? It's that fine line, I guess, between um the the, the storytelling activity and the, oh Lord, the public part of it, that when it
Mhm.
becomes public product, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But I think even that is yes, I know what you mean, and I'm just thinking that even that is culture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture is to belch it out, vomit it
Mm-hmm.
out, spit it out. I'm saying it in a horrible way, but it's all get it out
Mm-hmm.
there, right? The
Mhm.
culture of protect it, nurture it, um, keep it going is not as strong. You know what is interesting is that even let's look at theater people, right? Theater people will put on a production. You write a play and you put it on, and then next year, you can't put it on again, because they say, "Oh, we see that already." But
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Hundreds of years of Shakespeare,
Mhm.
the same Hamlet, the same Othello, the
Mm-hmm.
same, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And one of the things is that we are so in love and in awe and fascinated by these specific books because they are the foundation
Mhm.
of who and what we are, because of how much it has become part of our psyche. And so we have to be willing to invest in our own things now, tell stories that can become the psyche for other people,
Mm-hmm.
our generations to come. But in order to do that, we have to do that again and play it again and say it again. But in order to do that as well, we have to protect it so that
Mm-hmm.
somebody not just take it and it's now for them own and you fight with them and it's
Mm-hmm.
problematic and stuff like that. So yeah, we have to develop that culture as well.
You know who has been very excellent at protecting our stories, or traditional practitioners, particularly those who are dealing with traditional forms that are spiritual. So, for example, with
Amina.
Kumina. Well,
Oh,
yeah, but I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, as a storyteller in a
yeah.
in a larger sense. But I'm thinking about the kind of story that involves ritual and paraphernalia, and a particular set of people who have worship practices. You can't just go up in the people them Kumina community and just
Mm.
decide say, oh, I interview
No.
anybody and get no
Nope.
story. You're
True.
not go get it. You have
But
to
that
sit down. You have to sit down and as anthropologists are supposed to do, although I don't love anthropology, because of its roots. You're supposed to sit and become trusted by that community. You may even have to
right.
become a practitioner yourself in
Mm-hmm.
order to even get one glimmer of the
Mm.
deep part of the story. Sometimes I think
Mm.
that aspect of us as well has been so forgotten. As you say, we get used to just to belching out everything. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a way in
Right.
which we had a tradition also of keeping certain things for the ears of those who were supposed to hear them,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
so that the things remained, so that the power remained untouched. And in fact, I
Yeah.
won't say this and it's troublesome, but I'm going to say one of the legacies that we have as choreographic storytellers is that we have learned how to be exploitative with people's stories and
Mm.
with people's particular like spiritual stories, because we look at it from this artistic lens, this outside lens, not understanding these things mean a certain thing, and we think we have creative license. You know who do that? Colonizers do that.
Mm-hmm.
Anthropologists do that from the outside. So there,
Yeah.
there are ways also we have to check ourselves in terms of how we have perpetuated the, even within our own spaces, the telling of somebody else's story without their consent, permission. You know, you see something, you like it, you hear a music, you like it, you use it. And I love the creative aspect of it. Me love that. But at the same time, the truth is, aren't we supposed to be able to check in with those persons, make sure that what we are doing with it is okay in terms of the larger, deeper meaning of those stories. And when I say stories, I don't just mean what is said, I mean all the things that are done. I want to tell
Mm-hmm.
you, there is a set of fabric makers from the Philippines that I met in, I would say, I think it's either in 2018 in like Leeds or somewhere. And they were telling me that there are particular patterns that are, the elders will tell you, are for a particular year, for example.
Mm.
If you as a fashion person want to use a print that is not within that particular year, you have to go to the elders, you know. You're a modern day fashion person, you have to go to the elders, because remember the weaving is also storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
You have to go to the elders and get their permission to be able to use it out of season.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say, well, I want these colors now because that's the color of the moment. The knowledge of where the trace back can happen
Mm-hmm.
is very important to their being able to fold the respect, the consent, the the um the continued heritage and the success
Mm-hmm.
into their making of something modern and new.
Yeah, I think
So
that.
Claire, you mentioned that there's been just to quickly on the fabric thing. There's been some posts that I've seen on social media about these fabric prints from these communities in Africa that a lot of these French designers have just completely ripped off the designs and the symbols and all that kind of Fendi, and I mean, I'm not calling them Fendi and the rest.
Mhm.
Completely ripped off. Like you look at it and say, oh yeah, that's Fendi.
Mm-hmm.
In their logo. I mean, come on. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, sorry, I
Mhm.
just wanted to juke that in. Oh
I
man.
just
Mhm.
wanted to touch back a little bit to the whole thing of Kumina. A part of it is that, and not Kumina specifically, but you know, as that as an example, some of what we have in our Jamaican culture, we feel that we are all, as Jamaicans, entitled to it.
Mhm.
You know, we feel that all of us own
Mhm.
it because it's Kumina,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
forget that there is a set of people who have held it for us to
Yes.
Mhm.
appreciate, to
Oh.
value, to understand. And
Mm.
so we need to value those people,
Mhm.
understand those people, and allow them to kind of help us to not dictate to us, but help us to further spread this thing, this tell this story in ways that
Mhm.
are respectful, as you said, Neila.
Mhm.
But is
Mhm.
it also you did mention also creative license.
Mhm.
Where does that go? Where is
I
the,
don't know.
yeah, because I think that there is space for uh, a ripping apart of the traditional, a tearing up of the old codes and the books and the, and if you think about it, let's just think about what Nettleford did with Kumina itself. Let's be specific about that.
Mhm.
Um, if Nettleford had, and he says this in his book, I don't remember which one,
What a
if
them.
one of them, if he had taken Kumina and put it on the stage in the way that it is done in the traditional setting, it would not be appreciated. First of all, let's say you're gonna put Kumina on stage, right? The first you know, a dance, you don't want to see a dance more than 10 minutes in the liquor theater or in that space, right? The first 10 minutes of it in its natural state is what? Maybe that's the drummer, the people just walking up and setting up the drum. You don't even see nothing yet. After that, another 20 minutes, you reach 30 minutes, and one person might, just come into the space and them walk around. So a whole 2 hours could have gone and the dance would not have started. And so there is a way that you have to abridge. There's a way in which you have to curate the experience for an audience. And it's in the curation of that experience for an audience that you get a chance to say, how much of this do I make reverential to the people who created it, and how much do I go and rip apart for the people who are going to appreciate it and see it and value it? Because that's also what you're trying to do, or what Netherford was trying to do. Get the people who don't have it in their everyday experience, get them to see it and appreciate the beauty of it that he could see in it, as that filter, as that that thing, that person, that distilling audience of one that could filter this experience and make it palatable, acceptable, entertaining, aesthetically beautiful, pure for an audience, to a wider audience.
A little cultural translator.
Yeah, cultural translator. So, it's such a rough thing. But I think it's rough enough because it's in between.
It's funny though, because Mike, if like Fela Kuti, when he played, that band, before him even sing a word, the band was playing for half an hour and the audience was loving it. And that's one song. And then the song, he would come on and start to sing and do whatever and dance and whatever. And then it's another 45 minutes and it's the same song. So there's different audiences that will appreciate things.
And you have to also cultivate your audience, because I believe strongly in building audiences. I don't believe that audiences just happen. So any audience that is just there and you just say, okay, that's an audience like that. That audience has been cultivated by somebody, and likely it wasn't cultivated by you. And if it wasn't cultivated by you, then it might not be your audience. It might not. The audience might not be ready for you and what you have to deliver. So it
reminds me of a time when I did Mountain in a synagogue, in the synagogue downtown, and we did Mountain for 20 minutes, and nobody was there. We're involved in the audience. People were coming on and dancing on the sandy floor, and but it just felt right. I guess I guess it depends on the situation, depends on the mood.
But, you have to show a little bit of Mountain, by the way.
Nice video.
We're another episode, but yeah.
The thing though is that, and I want us to really look at this. So funny, because this is what I actually want to delve into, like more postgraduate work with, right? I want us to look at the constructs that we have inherited as creativity showing itself on proscenium stages. The assumption in the first case that the proscenium stage, moving from the field to the proscenium stage, is actually a step up. Right? That's the assumption we have been given. It didn't necessarily stay so. Durational work exists in the world. It's just that, as you say, our audiences for theater and dance and even music have largely become so used to these short, easy to digest works that need to give you, need to grab you immediately. They don't have any patience to actually sit down and think through, or like wonder what that kind of a thing.
It's worse now in the TikTok, Instagram,
and what has happened with social media as well. Things have even shrunk more in terms of attention span, right? It doesn't mean that those things would not have been, they wouldn't have been possible at the time. They weren't in vogue at the time, for sure, right? Netherford was working with a modern idea of dance. It needs to look a certain kind of way, must be framed a certain way. And let me tell you, Kumina is one of my favorite works ever. It's one of those that I look at and I think, wow, I wouldn't change anything. Everything is perfect the way it was, as a piece of modern dance inspired by traditional forms. And I think there is that place and space for that. But I wonder, like, really, how much did it impact people in terms of people wanting to go to the root and think differently of the root and the people who practice Kumina? Or did it make people want to see more things that look like Kumina? Because what happened, as far as I could see, in JCDC, which is our annual, arts festival
Festival. Yeah.
competition, the
Mhm.
dance aspect, everybody and their mama have a come in a piece, and
Yeah.
it look like
It look
where
like.
NDTC did do from 60 whenever in 1980 something. So I think that's
Mhm.
when it was. Meaning you have the crossing and you have the going around. Nothing in there is indicative of actually people move in an anti-clockwise position because
Mhm.
there is a center pole where you have your drummers because the one that I can remember now is when Lantoinette Steins, Dr. Steins Kumina was created. Her Kumina tried to also use that ritual aspect of it. So it is front facing, but it also is circular in a certain kind of way. Which when I looked at it first, I was like, yo, this not giving me the same boom as the other one where the dancers were sweeping across the stage, but it was closer to the kind of bringing the field
Mhm.
situation into the space. And I think what happens sometimes with us is that we work with replication as against having what we have extrapolated. We think it's going to take people back to the source, make them interested in the source. No, they just want more of the same, and they're going to keep doing more of that. I remember, interestingly, talking about working respectfully with traditional forms. So I remember Dr. Steins had also done bingi, and
Mhm.
I don't remember if it was the first time it was being done, but it was done at the Ward Theatre. It might have been part of the Yard Conference or something that she used to put on. And I sat beside two ladies who look like Rastafarian elders, right? Beautiful locks and crown and thing, and them sit beside me. We're up on the, I guess, mezzanine. And there was a moment in Bingi where the female, the queen, was being lifted by I guess the king or one of the male dancers, and her elevation above their heads by them upset the women beside me. They were upset. I mean,
Mhm.
when I tell them upset, how you can do that? How do that? Yeah, that would never happen in Bingi. And da 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 da. Now Bingi is not like that. You can't elevate a woman like that. Da, 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 da. And I said to myself, I wonder if it's because she's above or because of he had to hold her bottom. I wasn't sure what it was, but there is that kind of tussle too,
Mhm.
because artistic license was taken. In terms of movement, you want to see that maybe she's also making a political statement about the importance of women in Rastafari and importance of
Mhm.
being in terms of being gay. But at the same time, doing that is counterpoint to what some of the people who are involved in the thing believe to be good.
Mhm.
Mhm.
As a maker and as a teller of this particular story that might be yours or might not be yours, like what is your
Mhm.
responsibility there?
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes I think the artist has a right
Mm,
to re-evaluate
mm,
and to re-value
mm.
and reposition. So maybe those two elders needed to be shocked. And then maybe they needed to be shocked.
Maybe.
And I don't know. And maybe I'm going to be shocked by anybody's response to my response.
Right.
But
Mhm.
sometimes people just need to see it from somebody else's eyes.
Mhm, mhm,
That's the
mhm,
whole point of telling a story.
mm,
You're repositioning the culture around you through this individual expression, this individual experience of a thing. And
mm,
so there's always going to be that dialogue, that conversation between what the culture wants to say about itself and what the culture um, is willing to allow others to say about it. You understand this? There are things I know all culture are good culture.
True.
mm.
It's just
Very
culture.
true. Yeah,
I know everything
yeah.
that is considered culture is good, and some things need to be changed. And I'm not talking about that specific thing now with
Right.
Nancy. I'm just talking generally. We have and I don't want to go back to Anansi, right? Because and we've explored that fully. But we do have certain things in our Jamaican Caribbean context which are cultural, which are not necessarily beneficial to how women are positioned, or how men are positioned,
Or
or
children.
or how children are treated. You know,
Yes.
it's interesting for me that when you look at how I had a post recently. I wish I could I remember exactly what I said, but it's really that you see how Americans treat their kids. We will look at them and say, Lord, them give them so much freedom. Look at them, a back chat them mother, them must say this, them must say this, and they have that freedom to back chat. We one back chat, one back slap, one thump in the back, box your head off of your shoulders. And so there are these two things from these different areas, and they say, well, we don't want that, but also some of what we have, we should also be saying we don't want that, why can't children speak? Why can't children be allowed to speak up, let their voices be heard in a particular way? Why can't there be a middle ground? So those are the things we have to think through culture, and not let culture, yes, culture is a driving force, but culture cannot dictate to us our culture cannot be the only arbiter of our values and our. We also have to be thinking individuals and say, this is a part of the culture that I accept, and this is a part of the culture that I'm going to improve.
But we also, because there's some aspects of culture that we were born into, and we need to be able to dissect those things, because even with the folk, let's go back to the folk things, like some of the folk music. Dr. Olive Lewin was brilliant for it, but her thing was coming from a classical background. So it was a colonial thing. So the way she presented the folk music was very classical, right? And so when, like, let's say when I come now and put these electronic things, some people will go, "Oh, but that's interesting, but that's not right."
Right.
but that is just another frame, right? So you have to be able to even back up where it is that you're going in your direction. You have to be able to know why you're doing what you're doing, and where the thing was coming from before, so you can address it. You can go, yeah, but this is not how it, because when I listen to those field recordings, there's nothing classical about them, right? But when she's arranged them and stuff in these nice 3-part harmonies, and it's very European, very, because she studied in England, and that's where she will learn to do what she did. So,
and sometimes they're telling you it's not right because they're thinking that you should know better than to do that. But then somebody else could come and do the same exact thing, and then, oh my God, did you hear what they did with our culture?
So there's something I wanted to ask you, because we had kind of gone to it before, in a sense, about not all aspects of our culture is necessarily not all aspects of Jamaican culture is necessarily my culture or your culture, Neila's culture, and so does that affect how we think about the stories that we can tell? Like, I might feel okay to say, okay, let me tell a Jamaican story from this Jamaican Indian perspective, or from a Chinese perspective, or so what. But I've also heard some people who are maybe not brown, let's call it brown presenting, who are from uptown, but they have a problem with uptown, and so and they paint uptown with this kind of one. It's like one-sided brush. It's just everything is over the top, and everything is colorist and blah blah blah. When that's not really the case. Yes, you can have that there. Yes, but there's people in uptown living their normal lives and being very very well thinking about everybody else. So can we see those stories? Can we see those nuanced stories from all aspects of our culture come through, and we accept it, and we're okay with it?
I mean, I'm okay with all Jamaican stories being told. I mean, there are some stories I may not be able to be comfortable with, and that doesn't have anything to do with culture, but it may have to do with some like moral choices. For example, like, I'm not sure if I want to know the deep thoughts of a serial killer. Like, really, that's for me. Them kind of stories, me not really, no matter which culture I come from.
I agree with you.
Me not interested in it, right?
I did like a series called Dexter, so yeah.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I try, but then other aspect of it comes up for me. But you can recognize it for good storytelling and that sort of thing. But I want every Jamaican story of consequence to be told, right? And everybody who is living here has some story of consequence.
Yes.
Everyone has a story of consequence, because people are people. and the same kind of relationship drama where you have whichever party of it, down at Chilani, you're gonna have it up at St. Andrew. You're gonna
Right.
have it in Montego Bay because
Mhm.
people are people. Relationship story the same,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna have, and because the stories are really about that too. The stories, even if you're talking about how somebody sees nature, that's a relationship with themselves and nature, and everybody, no matter what echelon you are in, will have some aspect of that. Whether the story is interesting is another
Mhm.
case,
Mhm.
but at the
Right.
very least, there is something there to be said. And I do find that a lot of the things that are told, especially for example, and Mikey Hoge, you can, because you are, a filmmaker, you can talk more about this. But a lot of things that are told through film, for example, do tend for me to focus on the stories um that are I don't want to say rags to riches. And I don't have a problem with it either, to be honest, because people need to see you start here, you strive, you're able to move to somewhere else. So I
Mhm.
love them story. Them. As a Jamaican, I love to see those stories. I don't want to see no story about somebody who started rich and end up rich. I wouldn't
Mhm.
mind seeing a story about somebody who started rich and end up poor. That's interesting,
I,
in terms
I'd
of,
love the rich and end up richer story if it was me. So
I know, right? As a real life thing, yeah. But just to say that there can be balance also. There are smaller stories that could be told. I like social media for that as well, where people are
mhm.
telling their small mundane stories about their everyday life. You
Mhm.
know, I remember I remember there was a play that I studied when I was doing my masters. The British are so interesting. The entire play was about a woman's fall to the floor. She was walking across a dance floor, a nightclub, and she fell down. That's the play, But what happened now is that it's from all sort of interior perspective. She see herself from the outside. The time goes slow, meaning we are so used to telling these very clear rags to riches,
Right.
turmoil to success stories that are
Linear.
important, that we don't remember that there are some smaller things. There could be a
Mhm.
Right.
story about a recipe
Mhm.
that your grandmother that you make,
So
and you
Neila,
remember it.
if the
Yeah,
person if the person started rich and ended rich, as long as the story is about something else that they're doing in their life, I don't care.
true.
I
That's
mean, you
true.
can be
That's
who
true.
you are, wherever you
Yeah,
are, wherever you fall, be you, or whatever it is. But
yeah,
there's other
yeah.
things that you're doing. Your life is not about being rich and remaining rich. You know.
Right, right. There's more. It's just that also what we have to be careful of is that, which I think one of our previous commenters was thinking about, is that a lot of stories that we tell can perpetuate some of the same things. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, because people need to see in order to think, right? To imagine. Many people, and I always say this, Jamaicans' imagination has been cut at the root. We're not taught how to imagine. We're taught not to imagine, not to actually be creative. People must be drones in our workforce. And so people they can't, there's some people who are very good at it, but they can't see themselves out of a circumstance. And so what you put in front will help them to see themselves out of a circumstance, which is, I guess, why we have the kinds of stories that we have. And these are important stories to be told, stories that come out of the ghetto, that come out of hardship, that show striving, that show that even though there's pain in your life, there's joy there, and there's joy when you also succeed in a different sort of way, right? But so we do have to be careful about, I think, the way that we portray ourselves to ourselves. But at the same time, there's so much more that we can tease out. And so if that getting richer is a good story, that's an equitable story, that doesn't make an interesting story, that doesn't make the person who has not who doesn't have that as their life circumstance feel dejected, or feel, you know what I'm saying, then I'm good. I'm okay for it, because we do have a responsibility, I think, to use the art to help people to see themselves in a whole
Mhm.
kind of way. Not that we're being um mm, yeah, I'm losing my words, sorry. But you,
It's
know what I'm
fine.
saying.
I understand. It's like how a friend of mine, our friend Amber Shavans. I remember
Hmm.
what conversation we were having. Because Amber is a playwright and
Playwright,
screenwriter,
screenwriter.
all of that
Hmm.
type of stuff. And I remember we were talking about stories because she's one of my go-to persons. If I have something I'm writing, I want her to look at it to tell me this makes sense, or because she actually studied it in a certain way. And I remember she said, we're talking and I say, this story could have a kind of bad man, down man thing. And she says, Michael, I'm not interested in telling any of those stories. Enough of those stories have been told. They don't need to be told by me. And I got that. That's just one of the things that struck me, and it was an enlightening moment for me, and it was an empowering moment for me, because I'm thinking to myself too, I can decide what kind of stories I want to tell.
Exactly.
And I can focus on those stories and let somebody else tell the other stories, and that's okay. The lifespan that I have, I can tell a certain type of story that is that fulfills my need to tell stories and fulfills my need to get through to a particular audience, and hopefully fulfills what the audience that I am reaching out to will be entertained by and like and be satisfied by, So yeah.
If I never see another uptown versus downtown love story,
Shakespeare.
I know, right?
But even then, we've seen it. It's been done.
Exactly, that's the point.
Yeah.
I think that's also why, because you had asked earlier, Mikey Harris, about what kind of stories you wouldn't feel that you could tell. And I was thinking, yeah, there are stories, especially stories that come from a space that I didn't come from. I could try to empathize with where the story is coming from and tell it in that particular way, but I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, okay, so this is a story about somebody who grew up in this way, me I gotta tell that story there. No, I can't. I don't have the life experience. If, for example, though, there was funding for research and development, I could find a way to be able to work with the persons to help them tell their story. So I'm not trying to tell it for them, but these things require time and they require resources if you really want to do the research properly. If you want to live in the space or have the interviews, and based on the interviews now, you try to make sure that you are capturing what it is that they have experienced in their lives, so that when they see it, they cry and say, "See me there." So now that is different, and that requires resourcing. But I wouldn't just jump up and say, "Yeah, man, I am a choreographer. I can tell every story." I can't. I am not every woman. It's not all of me.
But even with other people's stories, we still have a perspective of that story from our lens.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the story we can tell.
That's true.
And then if we do at the research part, we can also tell their story, and then also tell the story of when the two perspectives meet, kind of thing. So I mean, there's so many angles we can take these things from, and sometimes it feels like it's like people who are telling the stories are either being limited or limiting themselves in some way.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'm thinking about too? I'm thinking about how the culture itself, or what people consider to be the culture, the identity that we have, limits certain kinds of stories being told. So, for example, you don't necessarily have stories about older people in certain ways. You don't have stories about queer people in certain ways, as if there are no queer people in Jamaica with stories. You don't have stories about disabled people in certain ways. So those who the Jamaican society, as a broad brush, deems to be fringe and not worthy of attention or worthy of life, don't have stories to tell. And there is funding, again, is important for that, because mainstream funding will never fund those stories. You have to have a council that says all of these people in our country matter, they're all citizens, and their stories matter, because they're not the only ones, and they need to be seen.
I think that will come from a space also that understands the value of the arts, and not just not just for entertainment, but the value of the arts in terms of what it does for the society itself. Even the entertaining part of it, why is that necessary? Just like how coming out of the pandemic, I think I said it last week, we realize the value of the arts. But so understanding the value of the arts is what will make people invest more in the arts. And I think right now we have this thing where we just frivolously dismiss the arts, although it is so valuable, and it's a weird thing, and because of that, we also dismiss the artists. A friend of mine, and I won't call any names because it's too. A friend of mine was telling me recently about going to this hotel to perform, and they're there in the hotel, and they are carried into this back room, and when they went and they realized, so they nice hotel, they realized that they're practically in a bathroom. That's where the artists are expected to wait until it's time to go and perform. Why? Because we don't value artists. And then, in addition to that, the artist must now come from this disrespected space and then give you all and give you every single thing they have. And then at the end, you're going to thank them and say that. And the next time them come, you're going to put them in a little chook up bathroom again.
Mm-hmm.
The valuing that is necessary. And it's so important that people know their worth, especially as artists. Because that comes with also, you have to feel worthy to tell your story. So, yeah.
And know the worth of stories too.
I know the worth of stories. Am I frozen again?
Yeah, you're frozen again.
You're frozen again. I hope you unfreeze.
Yeah.
Do you think that in the society that we are in right now, I mean, it could be global, but I want to talk about Jamaica. Do you think that there are people who are scared of the value of the arts? Like who understand the innate power of the arts for change, like for personal change for people, and therefore deliberately don't focus on it because they're afraid of that?
I don't think they're afraid. I mean, I think if they understood the power of it, they'd use it more. Even for their own ends, but clearly they don't get it. They don't understand.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
They don't understand how it could transform and direct a society and a culture. So they don't value it. They don't understand it.
Don't understand it. No, it just seems frivolous and ornamental to them. Yeah. Sometimes I want. Yeah, you're back. Unfrozen. Sometimes I wonder if that's not a good thing, in the sense that at least, because if they knew the power of it, there's a lot more that we'd have to fight against, because if they're using the arts to make change, that's not good, positive change.
I think it might be that they know the value of the arts. They just think that we don't.
You think so?
They know the value of the arts. They just think that we don't know the value of the arts. They think that we don't know our value.
But then
the question was
24/7. There's no function that starts without it. There's no commercial that happens without it.
Yeah, but that's not the real value of it.
But they know the value as entertainment.
It says something about the value. It says
they know
something
the value
about
as entertainment. That's it.
No, it's not just the entertainment. Even on the campaign trail, the political trail, in every sphere, they understand it. They understand it. They just don't believe that we understand our value. And if they can get away with not giving us our due, they will. And that's a colonial thing again. It's a colonial mindset.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
If you can get away with it, you're going to get away with it. And because we now unite and do something about it, people will continue to get away with it. It's the rare artist who's going to stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable to me. Because you immediately feel, if you say something, this is not acceptable, then you, as your one little chicken egg, can pop up and just chop it off and you're gone, and that is the end of you. And 50 million crabs in a barrel, 50 million more crab going shove up them head, or then whatever them body, to get whatever it is they thought that you, as the princess, to get what you had. And so it's a cycle of
scarcity and disrespect and
So I think, and what can heal that? What can heal?
The other day I was reading, Revolution. Today I was reading Revolution. Sorry. Today I was reading that Ailey had to cut one of its recent shows short because the backstage temperature was too cold. And they did not try to, thug it out. Granted, Ailey has built its name, right? But the Ailey company didn't say, oh, we'll thug it out. The dancers weren't castigated for saying, I'm not going to dance in this cold. It's dangerous to them. They said, based on the health and safety requirements of their dancers, and the theater tried everything that they could to increase the temperatures backstage, but they could not do it. And therefore, we are sorry, the show had to end prematurely, but X, Y, and Z. That's the kind of stand I agree with you, Mike, that we should be taking. But their situation is very different from ours. For some people, if they take that stand at that gig, they're not
Mhm.
going to get any more gigs, and they don't
Yeah.
have any money to go supermarket or to even go to the corner store. So because of the inequities in the space, people
Mhm.
can't get a chance to.
But you
They
see,
know innately that that their value is being diminished, but they can't get a chance to actually stand up for themselves. There's no cushion. There's
but
no
that have to
buffer.
do with culture and industry as well, because I'm sure in Ayla's situation there probably is a union,
Yes, there is.
and
Yes,
there
there
are
is.
rules that
Yeah.
you can't do certain things or there's going to be a
Hmm.
problem. And I mean, it's the same thing that surprised me because I know we have a teachers union in Jamaica. We have let me use the word. We have a bitch of a union here where where I am, and
Hmm.
then don't play. The
Hmm.
littlest thing you see an email said, "Don't let them do that. You can't do that. Blah blah blah. Don't do it. Don't allow
Mm.
it. Blah blah blah.
Watchdog.
You have
Yeah.
these rights. Blah 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 blah."
Hmm.
So that's I mean the problem again there with the unionizing for the artists in Jamaica is that it's a crab in the barrel thing, and well, I'm sorry to say the Anansi thing too,
Mm.
where if they can use if the people who says, okay, I'm in charge of this union, and they get all the resources for themselves and use it for their friends, but I
Yeah.
don't actually do anything for the artist as a whole.
Movement. Yeah.
Nothing effectively, so and it keeps repeating, keeps repeating, keeps repeating.
Hmm. My colleague and their brother, Chris Walker. I think he was when he was giving was it a Philip Trolloc Center? It might have been, but he
Yeah,
was
might have
speaking
been.
about, about silos, the silos
Yeah.
that
It's
we
center.
are all in. We work in these silos, and we like our autonomy, and we like our independence. We like our new and fresh perspective. We like when somebody says, "Wow, I've never seen that before. You're so innovative." But that artistic siloing also is a kind of a admin siloing as well, and
Mhm.
a competitive siloing. So
Mm-hmm.
when we are in the same room, I have been in the same room with many, many dance heads, and we could not agree on what it is. We're in a room with people, let us say, I think we're in a room with people from customs. It was many, many governments ago that were called in to talk about, for example, getting waivers to bring certain kinds of things in. And some people were there not for that. They want to talk to government people about getting space and theaters free. Some people were there for other things. We were not united even on what we would have wanted from customs people.
And so the
Some
colonizer and the
uh-huh,
colonizer representatives like
uh-huh,
when we say in our silos.
exactly. Because
So
then they can talk to this one, talk. We don't have that experience of unity, of
mhm,
community. And one
yeah.
of the things I find funny too is that a lot of the stuff that, especially in dance, that we do for the dance in this country is voluntary,
Mhm,
and yet we hold on to these silos. We don't talk to each other. We have a set of younger persons who dance with each other.
mhm.
They cast each other in various kinds of things.
Yeah,
University Dance
yeah.
Society has a very big part to play in that for us,
Mhm,
for me as well, because you
mhm,
dance with people from various spaces, and so you don't get
mhm,
entrenched. But that those are not at present the power brokers in those spaces,
mhm.
because they still belong to those other spaces that will say to them, you mustn't do the class over there, or you mustn't do so and so over there, you can't dance with that person. There's this identity of siloism that prevents us from actually understanding how we can benefit each other and have an actual voice that other people will see, that we know the value of what it is that we have, the
Yeah.
bargaining chips that we have.
But I mean, to wake
Until
up,
then,
man, wake up, wake up. It's 2024. Wake up. How long
it's
we into this?
2024.
I
Even
think
if
I think I think less and less so now, but still there for sure. As you said, Neela, there are those persons who them are crisscross, them are go across the different lines and stuff like
Mhm,
that. And yeah, but it's definitely still there to in some measure, yeah.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Neila, you had a
So,
quote. I'm going to bring up this quote. It was from, let me see. It was
oh yes,
IG, Code Black Life. We're not
yes,
begging for a seat at the table. While Hollywood sleeps on our stories, we are building our own table. First of all, I want to say
yeah,
Hollywood lucky. That is not the be all and end all. So,
right.
but
But
anyway.
but for so many people, it is. And I mean, so you have your Bollywood and you have your Nollywood as
Yeah.
versions of
Hmm.
of of Hollywood,
Hollywood.
because that's supposed to be the epitome of the
Yeah.
best kind of
Yeah.
filmmaking and so on. But I saw the quote today. It was an AI generated film that was being made with
Yes,
black
new the Sora
protagonists,
thing,
and
yes.
yeah, right. And I thought, wow, this is so exciting. And because they said table as well, in terms of us calling this podcast the Tallawah Table, we're building our own table. And we
Yes.
invite people to come to the table or build your own table. There's enough space for as many tables as possible.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
all the tables don't have to serve the same thing. But
One
if
long,
we
long
keep,
table.
yeah, if we keep, yes, exactly. If we keep expecting people to say, come over to our table, come over, and then you get itch up like, when you get the
Mhm.
corner, why are you going to do that for?
Yeah,
You know?
because we're still seeking permission and
Mhm,
seeking validation. Does your
mhm,
story need to be validated? And
mhm,
No.
that's kind of like similar to where we started, where we were talking
mhm,
about, the person. I am my primary audience.
Yeah.
mhm,
Just like when
mhm.
before we came on back and you said, "Can I drink this bottle thing?" I said, "No, you're sure. I you're sure. Drink it." Just like with the dog them are back and the cricket. That is the culture, and it's
It
our
is a
show. That is the
culture.
background
Yeah,
of our show.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't tell we're not
Mhm,
to.
mhm, mhm.
So here we are, telling
Yes.
our stories.
Well, first, I like this. So
Yeah.
let's hear from people what they thought.
Mhm.
Before we wrap up, of course, I need to promote some stuff because, as I said,
But
we're doing all these things on Reggae Online, and
mhm,
there's the lounge line with Colleen Douglas. I'm going to play a little clip. She had Gussie Clark on
mhm.
last week, and she's going to talk about something else this week. But so this is a clip from Gussie and Colleen. This is Lounge Line.
This business is one of the most ungrateful business in the world. I will tell you that. But it also is one of the best business in the world. Now, nothing, you must do nothing with word of mouth, with nobody, because people selectively forget what you agreed upon. So anybody you do it, whether you want to be the artist, the producer, anybody, sign what you agree to. Anybody is unwilling to sign, tell them have a nice day, goodbye, move on.
And so for all those who have tuned in, the importance of owning your own. Two, we are also looking at the importance of having agreements, signed agreements, so it's official and legal.
You can say about owning your own. It's something that's been floating around. Every artist, I want my own master, I want my publishing, or the producer, I want the most. You understand? It is good to say you want to own your own, but if it has no value, you'll own your own and nothing without value. So the
Yeah.
first and the foremost thing is that you must try to create something that will last time, outlive you, and have value over.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
I love that little quote. I love
Listen
it.
to me.
He had some little gems in this thing.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. And
Yeah.
you see, Colleen had Iba Cooper's
Yes.
phone, master
I saw that.
storyteller as well. Yeah.
Blessed
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So the next one.
Mhm,
Rockers Book Club.
mhm,
So we're back. We had a live hangout. We play like a clip from that. But we're coming up with a new season. The first book is going to be Marlon James' book. John Crow's Devil.
Listen to me. That's a story. Anyway, when you come back,
All right, we'll come back. All right, here's a quick clip. One more prompt.
Yes.
Well, this is really just applying to us, isn't it? It's why are you part of Rockers in this moment?
Because it
Well,
is.
let me start it. So,
Yeah, so Mike, your answer is even easier. I be started.
I mean, started. So yeah.
That's right. But why did you want to
Yes,
go
why
out
did
to
you?
the
What
club?
Okay.
nudged you?
So the nudging is, I guess it's still part of the Reggae Online thing. I was trying to create some kind of a community online of people who are interested in Caribbean, Jamaican things. I started with the music, and went to other things, to instrument making, to the business of music. But for me, I also wanted stuff with culinary arts and literature and dance and that kind of stuff. So it's still being built. This the concept is still being fleshed out. But definitely the book club was important because I feel like Jamaica, but not just Jamaica. I mean, I can talk about Jamaica because that's where we're from, but the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
and not just the English-speaking Caribbean, has such a wealth of literary gold,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, It's worth exploring and celebrating and discovering, because there's so much we do. I mean, we have a lot in common among all of us in the Caribbean and Latin America, but there's also a lot of different things and new things that we can find out, and things that happen that we didn't remember or never know about, or or future things that people are envisioning that might spark something else in us. So it'd be nice to explore all of those things.
Yeah. Mike, when you get to the cooking part and you want the host that will go to people's house and walk the people through it and be that.
Yes. All right, good.
I'll be there. In
Nice.
people's kitchen, to say, I'm here with Fabian Thomas today. We're making dukuno. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we get the big sponsor, we can fly you go Guadeloupe.
Yes,
No, man, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is right now, I can do Jamaica. You know what I mean?
Let's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Crow Devil,
Yes. Tell me.
I did not put it down the entire
Same.
night. And it was
Same.
not even a hardcover book or a
Yeah.
Sunday book. It was me on the Kindle. I goes a flipper, because the level of storytelling.
I tell you, and that was his first book. First
Papa,
book.
I would have read it again. I'm gonna be at the book club.
Come
because I
in,
need to
join
read
in,
it
join in,
again.
join in. Come on.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, guys, we talk now. So I think we're good, eh? Yes. Until the next time.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and a review and a blah blah blah. So thanks, Mikey. Thanks, Neila. Thanks,
Bye.
Mikey.
Thanks,
Bless
Neila.
you know.
Thank me too.
Thank you.
All right.
So funny.
Bye.
All right, my dears.